Welcome, everybody, back to the Agent Investor Podcast. I'm your host, Tom Caffarella. I've got an exciting guest on today, Ryan O'Neill. Ryan, how's it going, my man?
Tom, thanks for having me on. I appreciate the time, appreciate your show, and honored to be joining you here today.
Yeah, absolutely. I know you're doing big things up in Minnesota, right?
We are in Minnesota,
Yeah.
the Twin Cities.
Yeah, it's funny because I have people on all over the country, and Minnesota is one of those areas. I get a decent amount of people from up in that area. You guys always seem like you're doing a lot of big things, and I appreciate having you guys on. My mom grew up neighboring state in Michigan, so
All right.
yeah, definitely familiar with that area, like that area. But so you're a team leader right now, right?
Yes. Yeah. Yep. I am.
Team leader, sales coach, all that good stuff. So, tell us a little bit about your beginnings in real estate. Like, when did you get in? Why did you get in? And all that good stuff.
Yeah. So I actually started in 2001 and was not licensed at the time, but was actually interested in real estate investing. So I purchased a duplex here in Bloomington, Minnesota.
Yeah.
Was not an agent at the time, but being the early 2000s, this was the time of limited monies down, different financial qualifications needed to purchase investment property, and I had always had an interest in it, and so I actually, after buying the one duplex, I ended up buying a couple more single-family homes in the area, and realized that I enjoyed it. And I decided to get my license because there really wasn't anyone locally in our market who I felt was maybe a go-to resource for helping people invest in real estate. And for me, being younger, being new to the business, it was a good way for me to get into the business and to start investing or continuing to invest, but also to start growing kind of the agent side of the business.
I gotta say, I mean, I think probably out of the last 10 people that I've interviewed, about half of them said almost the same thing, which is that they didn't know of any agents who help people invest.
Right.
And it always kind of blows my mind because there is such a big population of people who want to invest in real estate. And there's a huge amount of agents, but at the same time, agents, a lot of them that are struggling to get business, never try to service investors for whatever reason. So it's interesting, again, like literally, I would say probably 5 out of the last 10 people have said the similar thing. Now, how did you know that? Like, what got you thinking, okay, wow, this is an underserved kind of market right now?
Well, I think it seemed that in the purchases that I made, I worked with some great folks, very kind, very helpful, and yet I could sense there wasn't a real high proficiency for the ins and outs of investment property. And I by no means was any expert at all. And I had been through some of the, I guess, kind of national programs, the books and tapes and infomercials. And but I felt that I had spent a good chunk of money on that, some of the national stuff, but I still wasn't actually purchasing anything and owning anything. And so for me, growing up in a small town, very kind of blue collar, just a kind of no BS sort of approach, I wanted to learn how to do this locally, and how could we actually take it out to others as well. And so that was that was part of it, part of the beginning. And I think for me, enjoying the agent side of the business, I just started running a few little ads, in the local paper and other places. My name is Ryan.
You're not that old, Ryan. The paper? Come on,
The
man.
paper. I'm telling you, literally, when I started, I ran an ad in this. It's called the Star Tribune.
Yeah.
And in the Star Tribune, it just said, "Hey, my name is Ryan. I've purchased X number of properties. Are you interested in investing in real estate?" Well, my phone would ring. "Hey, Ryan, this is Bob. I live up in Blaine. I want to buy real estate." Yep. So I would go and just start meeting people and starting to build relationships.
Yeah, and I think I've had some people in my office. I've got a brokerage, and I've had some people in my office do similar things, except not in the newspaper anymore, but on like sites like Bigger Pockets and things like that.
Sure.
Very, very similar approach though. Going to where people might be trying to learn about investing in real estate, saying, "Hey, I'm somebody who helps people invest in real estate," and
Right.
just getting tons of people because the amount of people who want to invest in some capacity is huge.
Right.
Um, so when back this up for even a little bit more. So when when you said, "Hey, I want to buy that first duplex," you were reading these books. Like, what kind of sparked your interest in even doing that?
Yeah, I think I like the idea um, of um, leverage of figuring out ways to kind of strategically build some wealth. Maybe doing it in ways that I had known other successful real estate investors locally and kind of seen what they had accomplished. And so I liked the idea of leverage. I liked the idea of at least in the duplex, I was living in half of it, renting the upstairs out. And
Mhm.
so almost living for free, in the property. And so it just seemed like it made sense financially. The money side has never been a huge motivator or driver for me internally. I think part of it is being smart, being efficient, and doing things in ways that again, from a human standpoint, like with the rental properties now, providing solid housing, good opportunities for a lot of people here, in the local area. So that interested and has always been an interest for me as well. But again, I think with the real estate business, as you know, Tom, with your brokerage, a lot of agents are just in the buying and selling business, and they work so hard to make a dollar instead of really slowing down and saying, okay, what am I going to do with that dollar right
Yep.
now? And I think that's part of obviously what your show is about, and I think what a lot of agents, I kind of challenge folks to do sometimes.
Well, tell me. So when you say you challenge folks, I'm just curious. Like, what are some of the conversations that you've had? Because we've got people who are going to be listening to this show that invest and they get it and they're doing it and they want to do more. But tell me a little bit about some of the conversations that you have with people who haven't done it yet, and what are you kind of saying to them in terms of like why you should be doing it?
Yeah, I mean, much like anything in life, there's no easy, soft solution
Mhm.
to investing and building wealth. I think part of it is we have to be risk takers in some way and be able to
Yep.
take strategic risks and um, doing it in ways that I think, when you talk to the version of yourself 5 years from now, or 10 years from now, or 20 years from now, you're going to be glad that you made that decision. And I think delayed gratification, being able to do it, to invest in real estate without needing an immediate um, return. I mean,
Mhm.
certainly, cash flow is going to be great. The tax benefits are going to be beneficial. But I think, my approach always has been, let's look 5 years, 10 years, 20 years down the road. And again, Tom, I'm a really good example. I bought most of the rental property I now own at really the worst time you can imagine, in 2005, 6, 7, prior to the market just tanking.
Mhm.
So I bought a lot of rentals, mostly single family homes, and market tanks. But again, my approach, and even with the seminars we do monthly with our team, is, hey, call me back in 5 years, 10 years, 15, 20
Yep.
years. And even now, and I'm sure your market's the same way, this is the best sellers market here in Minnesota that I've ever seen in the 20 years I've been doing this. And those values of the properties you bought have come back and then some, to a remarkable amount. And so I think that's part of it, that if you can, in as an agent, if you can just say, look, I've got 3 kids, or I've got these future college tuition payments or whatever. If you can just be willing to take a little bit of a risk, a strategic risk, to look at yourself down the road, you're going to thank yourself for it. And I think that's, I don't know, for me, I've just kind of said it, and haven't not forgotten it, but you know I've wanted to give it some time, and I think that's helped a lot and has paid off a little bit over time.
Yeah, I mean, you said a few things in there. The first is like, the wealth building doesn't happen quick. And it doesn't. There's no magic formula outside of like hitting a scratch ticket or like,
Right,
something, miraculous, right? So
right.
it definitely takes some time. You talked about the market, and I think this is another thing that sometimes people get tripped up on, which is like, well, I've got to invest at the perfect time. The problem is that unless you are starting out of the gate wealthy, the accumulation of these properties is going to be slow no matter what. So,
Yeah,
you're talking about you bought in 04, 05, 06, whatever. Obviously not ideal in terms of like the date that you bought them. But a lot of times people are waiting for this like bottom of the market. But then let's just say you do time it perfectly. When you're at the bottom of the market, how many can you buy at that point?
right,
So
right.
like that time, you're always chasing that time. I mean, you're talking about 04, 05, and then it's dipping in 08, 9, 10, 11, 12. There's
Yeah.
only a small window of time where it's at that level. So unless you can just come in and, you're worth 10 plus $1 million today and just go in at the bottom, it's just tough for average everyday people like myself. It sounds like you had some,
Yeah.
humble beginnings like me too, and it's just not possible. And you've got to start accumulating and getting used to it. And in fact, I might argue that you might be better starting in the worst market only because now you kind of got your systems up and running, so you can actually be more aggressive in the time where you're in the downturn, unlike somebody who's never done a deal before and now it's the bottom of the market and they're scared to do their first deal.
Well, again, you brought up a ton of good points, Tom. I mean, I think especially for fellow agents watching, once you purchase and you own something yourself, the real life stories that I could share with future customers was a huge credibility
Yep.
booster. People would, and again, you don't just share the sunshine and rainbows. You're sharing the real life. Boy, I had a tenant who damaged the unit and did this, or this was a non-paying tenant, or sharing those real life stories allowed you as an agent to build a lot of credibility with future clients. And so I think part of it, timing wise, again, I've had a lot of very good intentioned people over the years who maybe, analyzed, looked at the numbers, but could never pull the trigger. Maybe they felt the cash flow wasn't great enough, the timing wasn't great enough. But the reality of it, and this is again a little tip for fellow agents watching, I found over the years, when someone would call me and say, "Hey, Tom, I want to purchase real estate. I'm interested in investing in real estate." The one question I would want to get to the bottom of at some point is, do you own anything now?
Hmm.
And what I found is when the person has been through the process and actually owns something now, they kind of get it. And when it's someone who doesn't, it doesn't mean that they will never buy, but sometimes there's indicators for us as agents that they will be analysis by paralysis and maybe never have those personality tendencies that will allow them to pull the trigger and do that. And that's where some of my best clients I've had were, they're willing to take a strategic risk, and they're not going to analyze, you know to the 15th degree, will I make $62 a month on this or 64?
Yeah.
They're willing to look at the bigger picture. So as agents, you do have to also be protective of your time. Again, willing to take a meeting, talk to someone, build that relationship. But at some point, if they say they're an investor, the key is, do they own now? And if not, will they listen to your wise counsel
Yeah.
to actually on how you buy in your market, locally in your market? Very important.
Yeah. I mean, that stuff that, like I said, the pool of people who want to invest is so big that it can almost be a problem,
Right. Right.
because who doesn't want to own multifamily real estate? Who doesn't want to build their wealth, et cetera? But actually, who's going to really, do it?
Yeah.
So obviously you started out, doing some small stuff, buying, two family, single family, stuff like that. How did like the growing of your own investment portfolio kind of correlate to where you're at today in your real estate business? And fast forward us a little bit to kind of like what you're doing now.
Yeah, so I actively worked with buyers, sellers, investors from the early 2000s till about 2012. And during that time, we started to get a few other local agents working with our team. And we, like many teams and companies, we do a lot of different types of lead generation, that we're providing additional opportunities to our agents to help them do more business. And so we were starting to attract, a few different agents over time, and the business and the team, our real estate team, the Minnesota real estate team, was starting to grow a little bit. And eventually I kind of came to a fork in the road where I said, I'm either going to go all in and focus on the customers, or I'm going to go all in and focus on the agents
Yep.
with me as my clients. And so
Yep.
from that time on, that essentially is kind of my role, with our team, where I'm working with our agents from a business building standpoint, development, broker related problems, issues, that type of thing. And I think, over time, with the owning of investment property, what's happened is we've attracted a lot of kind of similarly minded agents
Yep.
in the Twin Cities
Yep.
that like our approach to, our approach is very, very low pressure, very, here's the information, we're here to provide good, valuable content for customers. So we do a local radio show, we do some seminars, but the intent is to help the consumer.
Mhm.
And I think what's happened over time is consumers, different people have reached out and said, hey, we heard your radio show. We want to invest in real estate. How do we do it with you guys? And
Yep.
so I think part of the approach, it's just been a little bit of an organic growth where now that's essentially what we're doing. And again, we do all types of real estate. So, I mean, it's primarily residential, but I'd say a good chunk of it is investment property as well. And it's
Yeah.
not just single family townhomes, it's some multifamily, some commercial. That's obviously more difficult, with even more or less available inventory locally. But we kind of work in all those spaces, and so that's at least kind of to today where I'm at and what we're doing.
Yeah. So, so much of what you said, even from the beginning, goes back to like consulting
Yeah,
and basically helping somebody make a better decision, more informed decision, all that good stuff. And that's one of the things that like I try to preach as much as I can within my own brokerage that, the more that you learn, the more that you're able to help somebody, the more you're going to earn. Because
right,
really, when you think about the consumer, I don't care what they're trying to do. If they're trying to just go on Zillow or if they're trying to look up how to buy a house, all they're looking for is they know they can get a bunch of information online. So you actually have to be better than Zillow. You have to be
right,
better than whatever that resource is. And
right,
so it sounds like whether or not you really purposely try to do this or not, your whole thing is like, okay, we're going to provide you with more information than you would get elsewhere.
right, right,
And that's the battle I think that we have in this day and age, which is like people think that they can get most of the information online. So you have to be even better than that. You have
right,
to be able to solve their problems. You have to be able to give them like one-on-one guidance as to how to apply that information in their own life.
right, right.
Um, so I also like talking about building a team, and this is like we talk about team building too sometimes here. Your focus shifting away from like the consumer to your agents. So tell us a little bit about like what does your team look like today? Like how many people do you have underneath you, and what are you providing for them in order to be on your team?
Yeah, so we're a group of about 190 folks all throughout the metro, all really experienced levels of agents. Um, the team, essentially, we're doing our best to provide value through business building opportunities with leads, with a lot of collective marketing that we do for our agents through radio. We do some print still, even locally with our listings. We have I would say, a very collaborative group where a number of the agents on the team have owned their own brokerage, have run their own real estate team, so the group is not Ryan and Club. And I think what's happened is people know that they are just on the same playing field as I am, and they're able to leverage our team's resources, our team's marketing, to help them continue to grow their business. And so again, if they have a listing, their name's on the sign panel, their name's on Zillow, they're not a set buyer's agent or a set listing agent. They can perform all the types of duties. And so really my biggest goal is helping that agent get to where they want to go from a business standpoint. And again, we do a lot of training, development, support. We've got a great closed Facebook group where there's a lot of exchanging of information. And so it's I would say, a very collaborative, dynamic, helpful, supportive, kind group that, in today's day and age with the business being so mobile, agents are looking for kind of a good vibe. They want somebody that is going to be there when the phone rings. Somebody's going to pick up. Somebody that cares. Someone that's in it for more than just the dollar.
Mhm.
And I know all that sounds very fluffy or whatever, but I think at the end of the day, like with your company, when you provide meaningful value for people, they're going to stay.
Yeah.
If you don't provide meaningful value, nothing's preventing agents on the team from going anywhere and
Yep.
transferring to this company or that company. So it creates an accountability. So for team leaders or people looking to grow teams or build teams, it's got to be good for your agent, and put down on paper, what are you going to do for them?
Yep.
Why are they going to work for you versus the next company? Because if you can't answer that, they are going to go work for somebody else. And that's what makes a business kind of fun, is it is that accountability back to you to provide value.
Absolutely. So tell us a little bit about like some of your investing goals moving forward.
Yeah. So, early on buying the rentals, I probably do a lot of things at about 200%. And so when I bought a lot of these rentals, I went all in and was pretty heavily diving into that extreme from a real estate standpoint. And so the
Yep.
last few years, I actually haven't bought anything at all, other than just kind of with our family, a vacation property down in Florida.
Mhm.
But which is, again, we kind of use even with our team, with our real estate team, from a retention standpoint to offer some time and weeks to their families to go visit. But for me now, a lot of it is trying to explore some other opportunities and different things out there from a stock perspective. From I have a good friend of mine who's a longtime financial planner, and so kind of exploring that avenue from a building wealth, understanding the market in that capacity. So a business standpoint, investing in some different businesses with friends,
Mhm.
that can have a lot of upside. I would say the downside is you have to know who you're going into business with, and know how you're going to structure that. In other words, who's in charge, who's going to make decisions. Because again, sometimes you get into business, or sometimes you purchase rental property with friends, and maybe it's not always, you're not clear on things. So
Mhm.
again, I think whether you're investing in real estate or businesses or whatever, just be clear on what's the structure. Because again, if you're used to making all the decisions yourself, and now you're no longer making all yourself, you have to learn that new dynamic and be able to roll with it. But so those are some of the other things, Tom, that at least I'm getting into.
And did you say you're doing like a monthly investment club or something like that?
Yeah, it's not. We do a monthly seminar. So we do a monthly seminar that, two different ones actually locally, that we'll advertise on the show, on the radio show, free, no charge. We Facebook Live those as well, and those are open to consumers, so they can come come and check things out. And those, we've done those for almost 15 years. So again, even as an agent watching, if you're looking for a way to find more clients, offer an investment property seminar.
Yeah.
Bring in your lender, bring in someone who owns some rental property, and don't be afraid to try something.
Yep. Yeah, no, I love that. I mean, I think, there's so many things along the way that you kind of like have queued up, but the biggest takeaway from me is just figuring out how you can provide value. I mean, you
Right.
talked about providing value to your agents, you talked about providing value to the customer, and just all along the way, just saying, okay, how can I not necessarily like go out and get a sale, but lead with value, and then
Right.
obviously the sales are going to kind of come from there. Uh,
Consumers, and you know this already, Tom, with the organization you built, clients don't care about us.
no, not at
They
all.
don't care. I see so much advertising and marketing that is not consumer facing.
Mhm.
And just a simple change with some marketing, if you can find a way to fill a need in your market, whatever it might be, investment property, et cetera, fill a need, the phone's going to ring. And
Mhm.
again, that is the way top agents, brokers like yourself build companies, firms, teams, is that, again, and that may sound really simple, but I see it even a lot locally in our market where there's so much, the marketing is about the agent, and the consumer at the end of the day just they want help, and that's a simple thing that folks can do.
Nice. Um, in wrap up, so what's the biggest piece of advice that you would give, or that you've already given to agents on your team, concerning somebody getting involved in investing? Like they want to
Yeah,
do it, or what do you say to them?
my biggest advice is don't hesitate to do it.
Yeah.
Early on in the business, I had a gentleman say to me, he said, Ryan, you need to start owning some stuff. And I said, well, what are you talking about? What do you mean? And I think part of it is, again, when you look at a lot all across the country, all of these uber wealthy folks, they all own a lot of real estate.
Yep.
And there's a ton of benefits to doing it. Don't let the fear of renting the property, of tenants, of any of that overcome you. Those are all very manageable things. And again, more is not better. So maybe, Tom, the agent tells themselves, I'm going to buy one property. That's a win. That's a huge win. You don't need to go crazy and buy 15 or 50 or whatever. Buy one and take it slowly. But again, your future self will thank you for making that investment in yourself and your family.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you coming on, sharing your knowledge. You've done a bunch in your career. Definitely, solid advice coming on. And thank you again for taking the time.
No, thank you, Tom. Keep up the great work. Love the work you and your firm are doing, and with this broadcast as well. So thank you. Thanks for the opportunity.
All right, guys. And we'll be back next week with another special edition of Asian Investor. Thank you for tuning in.